What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and it's time to talk Chelsea again. Another 4-1, another 4-1 victory. Another victory, 4-1 over Peterborough. And just go ahead and get it out of the way. You all know it's coming. The ref was awful today, and I don't think that's much of a surprise nowadays. I think, honestly, with the introduction of the rule that players are not allowed to talk back to the referees at all, not allowed to disagree with them, really. I mean, obviously, you can say your disagreement, but if you get frustrated with them, they get to card you now. And I almost think that referees have taken that to their advantage and said, oh, well, I can do whatever the hell I want, and they can't talk back to me, because if they do, I'm going to card them for it. And it's really shown this season. I mean, the refereeing this season has been really awful, and not just in the Chelsea games. I mean, obviously, that's the one I focus on because I'm a Chelsea fan. But really, overall, the refereeing has been terrible. And I've watched several games where I'm just like, that's a terrible decision. That's an awful decision. And it feels like there's no repercussions for it. It feels like whenever you give a penalty that's not deserved, or whenever you don't card somebody when it's deserved, where's the punishment for it? Where's the people that say, that's a mistake, do better? You know, you're getting a fine for missing that call. I don't ever see that. And even like the ones that are called that should be reversed, sometimes they don't happen. So, long story short, I'm going to keep this as short as possible, but the Terry red card, not deserved. Maybe a yellow for the other guy for diving. But, I mean, honestly, you look at, he takes a touch away from goal, so it's not really a obvious goal-scoring opportunity. You look at the fact that there's hardly any contact and he goes over, and you also look at the fact that here's the ball going this way, a little bit away from the goal, not like diagonal, but it's going a little bit away, and he falls towards the goal. That should kind of tell you that he's looking to get Terry sent off. He's looking to get him a red card, because he kicks it that way and falls that way. But the referee misses all of that, he gives him a straight red, and, you know, okay, so he made a simple mistake. Maybe he looked at it and saw something completely different than what everybody else saw. Okay, there's no excuse for the two penalties he missed. The Batshuayi one in the first half and the Batshuayi one in the second half. The first half was the most obvious penalty I've seen all year. He got kicked 3 times. The first time, he makes it through the challenge, stands up, goes after it, gets knocked the second time, and then gets kicked a third time, and, oh, but it's a corner, so it's okay. How do you miss all of that? And then there's the one in the second half, which I guess the referee could say, oh, it was not enough contact to go down, but in my opinion, that's another obvious one he missed. So I'm sure there were probably a couple of calls he missed for Peterborough, but those were the 3 almost game-changing decisions. It's the decisions that probably would have made more of a difference if this were a closer match, but because it wasn't, because Chelsea was just so much better than Peterborough, it didn't really change anything. But it's still frustrating that, you know, you missed that red card, and even though Terry probably wasn't going to play the next game, it's still frustrating that we had to end the game not only with 10 men, but the next 2 subs had to reflect that. You know, bringing in Aspilicueta and Conte instead of, I don't know, giving somebody else a chance to step out there and do something. So it was disappointing. But enough about the referees. Let's look at the game itself. Honestly, it's hard to talk a whole lot about this game in oh, this was a great game and all that stuff. Not because they didn't play well, but because you really look at the fact that we're playing at home, we're playing against Peterborough, who are in League One. Honestly, we all kind of expect a win. And it's if we don't get a win, that's when things start to, you know, if you lose, you're an embarrassment because you just lost to a League One team at home. And if you tie Liverpool, then you're also kind of embarrassed because not only do you tie at home against a League One side, but also now you have an extra game, and that extra game is at their place, which sometimes it can be hard to go and play at a lower side home stadium. So the fact that we won isn't, I'm not going to say it's not surprising, because FA Cup can sometimes provide some surprises here and there, but it's kind of expected in my opinion. And you can even tell with the goal celebrations, you can see they're a bit more muted than normal. You know, Batshuayi scored and didn't even really celebrate, because when you score against a League One side at home, it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, we scored. Woohoo. So let's talk about the goals, though, before I get into individuals. The first one was a good goal. It was very well set up, nice finish from Pedro. The second one, also very well set up. In my opinion, probably the best goal of the 4. just because of how well it was worked, the fact that Loftus-Cheek, who in my opinion actually had a pretty good game, but he had the awareness to set it up for Batshuayi to have a nice volley clean into the corner. It was nice. And then Williams' third goal was also very well set up, but his was mainly more some individual skill. First of all, ball from Fabregas, which once again shows he does that every now and then. Great ball to Pedro. Cuts it back to Willian, who just finds a room and somehow finds that bottom corner. I don't know how he does it, but he seems to find himself a little bit of extra space with one touch, whereas some of the other players, I think Pedro normally has to take 3 or 4 touches before he can finally find that space. With Willian, most of the time, it feels like he just takes one touch and he's where he needs to be. So, well set up. And then the final goal was another Pedro one. Just really well worked. Started from Aina from out wide, came inside. Just really well worked on all of them. They moved the ball around really well. It was just a matter of could they finish. Well, some of them they couldn't, but those 4 they did. So that was nice to see. As far as Peterborough's goal, in my opinion, it was a little bit of lazy defending. First, Pedro doesn't track his man, who's making the run in behind, so now Ivanovic has to step over, doesn't step over quick enough, cross comes in, Zuma's not quick enough to step to the guy who just passes it towards the back post, and nobody's quick enough to react as he just sort of easily passes it in. So a little bit of lazy defending. Even the midfield wasn't really, they were over top of the box, so they weren't really in the box helping out either. It just seemed a little bit lazy, but the fact that they managed to go and a few minutes later put a 4th one in just kind of showed, okay, that was just a little blip, a little bit of a mental lapse. So those are the 5 goals. Chelsea's obviously looked prettier. Peterborough's was more hard work that showed eventually. But enough about the goals. Let's talk about individuals, because to be honest, this is kind of the biggest deal in my opinion. Whenever you're playing these lower sides, it's a matter of getting the youth out there and what do they do. And sometimes it can kind of be a little bit skewed, because if a player has a good performance, well, you could say, well, it's just because it was a League One side, who cares? But it's the players that have the bad performances, I think, that need to be taken a look at. Because whenever you have a bad performance against a League One side, that kind of tells you there's no excuses there. There's no like, oh, well, it was just good opposition. It wasn't. Peterborough, I'm not taking anything away from them, but they don't have the quality. They don't have the same quality that we do. So if a player has a bad game, it shows. So individually, let's go one by one. Begovic made 2 good saves, I think. Didn't really have a whole lot to do. The main concern for me with him is that there were a couple times that he's just out of position for some reason. There's nothing really dangerous on, and then all of a sudden there was one, the cross gets whipped in, but it's mishit and it's headed towards the goal. And for some reason, Begovic is not only out, I don't mind him being out a little bit, anticipating the cross, but he's towards his back post. Why are you not in the middle of the goal? Why are you all the way at the back post? That doesn't make any sense. So he's actually coming back in towards the goal, and it's a little bit worrying that he's all the way out there. And then there's another time where ball's in the middle of the field, it gets put out to our left side, and for some reason he's on the right back post again, and he's shuffling across the goal to get to that left post. I'm like, why are you so far out of position? So obviously, he is our backup, but the fact that if Courtois gets injured or suspended, that's our second string keeper. Even though he does make the saves that he needs to make, there are times where he's just out of position, and it's kind of concerning that he's not seeing that he's the last minute, like, oh crap, I need to get back in position. So defense was Zuma on the right, Terry in the middle, Cahill on the left for the back 3. I do think this was a little bit of a mistake from Conte. I don't think that the middle defender should be your most consistent and strongest defender. Now, I'm not saying that Cahill and Zuma, I'm not saying that Zuma is not strong or consistent, but you really look at those 3, and John Terry is the defender of those 3. He is the one that you want last line of defense. He is going to make that last-ditch challenge, and unless the guy decides to flop over and the referee's an idiot, most of the time he is going to make a good challenge. And on top of that, you really look at why the back 3 has been working. David Luiz has been the middle, and he's the one that likes to step out, and he's the one that likes to go out and step into the midfield, make some challenges out there. And it's been Aspilicueta and Cahill covering behind that's made it work out so well. Cahill not doing so well in the past few games is part of the reason why we've given up 4 goals against Stoke and Tottenham. So you look at those back three, and you could kind of see where the problem was. I mean, there was a moment where, for the red card, Zuma steps all the way out trying to make a challenge and misses it. And so now your middle defender is the one having to step back in, and that's where he slips, causes the challenge, and that's where the red card comes from. And then on top of that, you look at what happens after the red card. Aspilicueta comes in, so now it's Zuma, Ivanovic on the left, Aspilicueta on the right. Well, now Zuma's stepping into the midfield, and Aspilicueta and Ivanovic are covering behind. And it really looked more comfortable, not just for the defense, but also for Zuma. Because, honestly, you look at before he got injured, even then, when people were still raving about the fact that, oh, he's young, he's a good defender, one of the problems that people had was his decision-making was a bit too naive. He was young, so there was time for him to build on that and become a better decision-maker. But we saw that today. There were decisions he was making that they weren't smart decisions. They weren't the correct decisions at times. So whenever you're doing that in the middle, well, you still got the 2 back there to cover for you. But if you're on one of those 2 back ones and you make a poor decision, most of the time there's nobody behind you to help you out there. So I think having him in the middle, same as David Luiz, those decisions that he makes whenever he does make a mistake, it doesn't hurt us because we've got the 2 covering. So I think if you are going to play him in that middle one for now. As he grows, hopefully his decision-making will become better. Hopefully he'll become a smarter defender as time goes on. And then he could slide into one of those 2 back ones. But for now, if you are going to play him there, because I think that's where he is most effective. Not just for those decision-making, but also you look at the fact that he's the one that's going to be stepping out and winning the ball, the long balls coming in. He does that very well. That's one of his biggest strengths, in my opinion. He gets up there and he can win headers very easily. So maybe even possibly a better decision than David Luiz right now, because Luiz has looked a little bit shaky at times. So that might be a better option there. But anyway, on to Terry. I thought he did okay. Obviously the red card I think was unlucky, but you could also attribute that to the fact that the age is sort of getting to him. He's not able to go as long and as hard as he used to. And I find that a little bit disappointing. I just hate the fact that this is how he's going out. He's not. I wish he had a bigger hand to play in the team. But aside from maybe taking Cahill out, I don't see where he'd really slide into the team very well. So a little bit disappointing there, but on to Cahill. Like I said, when a player is not doing well against the League One side, it shows. And once again, just like against Stoke, just like against Tottenham, where are all the chances coming from? The left side. Not just because of Cahill, Pedro's out there too, and I'll talk about him in a second, but honestly, just watching him play, his decision-making is not just poor, it's awful. It's some of the worst decisions I've ever seen. The decision to not track a man, the decision to dive into a challenge whenever you're kind of the last line of defense at that point. Letting somebody inside, not putting in a strong enough challenge and letting yourself get bodied off the ball. Even his decisions, once again, to dribble in a very tight and dangerous space. 3 or 4 times in the first half, I'm yelling at the TV, get rid of it, because he's dribbling in such a dangerous position, and all it takes is that one poke away, and they're in. And that's it, because he's the last defender. So I don't understand. I have no doubt, because Conte is a bit stubborn when it comes to making his team decisions. I don't doubt the fact that Cahill's probably going to be playing again come Saturday, but I don't understand why. Is it Saturday or Sunday? I'm sorry. I caught myself. I wasn't sure. Today is the 8th. It's Saturday. Okay. I'm sorry. My mind just went, wait, Saturday or Sunday? But I have a feeling he's probably going to be playing again Saturday. But watching this and watching the past couple games, watching him perform not well, making mistakes, getting pulled out, it's just kind of frustrating for me. It's frustrating to see that he's still continuing to make the same exact mistakes and nothing's changing for him. And it makes me think back to last season with Hiddink and Mikel. You see the mistakes Mikel's making. You see that he's not tracking back. You see all of this stuff, and yet he continues to start. He continues to do the same thing game after game, and we continue to tie or lose or eke out a win. And you have to wonder from Hiddink's perspective, how is he not seeing this? How is he not seeing all of this? I have to wonder from context perspective, how is he not seeing this? And if he has, why hasn't he done anything to change it? Why is Cahill still doing all of this? So, yeah, obviously not happy with Cahill. I haven't been happy with Cahill for a while, but I guess we still got the win. He wasn't responsible for the goal. He was just responsible for some of the chances. So, I guess. I don't know. The wingbacks were Ivanovic and Pedro. A little bit disappointed. I was hoping to see Aina or Kennedy in. Kennedy didn't even make the bench, unfortunately, but I want to see one of those two in for this game just because I feel like this is a good chance for them. And to see Ivanovic in over Aina and Kennedy not even on the bench is a little bit disappointing. And honestly, he was a little bit disappointing today. Not just on the wing back, but also when he slotted into center back. He just seems slower. He seems like he's not ready to go. It seems like he's not the same player he used to be. And I hate it for him because he used to be one of our best players, but now you can see he's not there anymore. He's not at the same level he used to be. There's so many balls that got hit for him, brilliant balls from Chalobah and Fabregas that he's not getting on the end of because he's not fast enough to get there. If he is fast enough to get there, that first touch he takes, trying to cut the defender reads him like a book, and then that's it. He's lost the ball. Now they're running at us, and he's not getting back fast enough. It's really disappointing, but I think this game kind of showed he's on his way out. He doesn't have the ability to do it anymore. Right now, he is being used as sort of we need to make it more defensive, so take Moses off and bring Ivanovic on. But even then, it's in games whenever we're clearly ahead by 2 or 3 goals. If it's a 1-0 game, most of the time he's not your first choice. You bring in Matic or somebody else in the midfield first before you bring him on. So I think this is just another example of why he's not cutting it at this level anymore. Pedro, I'm still, even with the 2 goals, I'm still kind of disappointed with him. The first goal was brilliant. The second goal was well worked for him. But defensively, I think he's not good enough to play the wingback role at all. And obviously, you can look at this and say, well, it's probably just a little bit of a gamble from Conte because we don't have a whole lot in that wingback role. But I don't know. One of the things that I know him for is he works hard to win the ball back. But he doesn't work smart. There are times whenever he's just flying all over the place. One big example for me is it was our corner. He was the last person they left back because he's got some speed to it. Well, ball gets played up to one of the Peterborough players, and Pedro goes flying in. And all it takes is the guy wins the ball, touches it past him, Pedro's beat. And now it's almost 1-on-1. If the guy decided to play a better ball, Chalobah was covering the back post. If he had decided to make a smarter decision, maybe drive at the goal instead and cause Chalobah to have to come across, it could have easily been a goal. So moments like that where you see Pedro go flying in and he's beat and he's our last line of defense. The moment for the goal, whenever he's not tracking the player and he gets chipped, and now all of a sudden he's beat, and on top of that, he doesn't really do a whole lot to get back. He got back behind Ivanovic, but not at the highest speed he could go. Not at the, oh crap, I just lost my man, get back. No, it's just kind of like, oh no, I lost my man. I don't know. Going forward, he did okay today, but I look at that as it's Peterborough. You should do well against them. If Hazard had gone out there, I imagine he would have torn their defense apart. So I don't really focus on that a whole lot. I focus more on what was his role today. It was a wingback role. What did he not do well? He didn't do well defensively. Okay, well, there's your problem. So, is he on the way out? I don't think so. I think Conte still sees enough in him, and I still think he has enough of those brilliant moments that I don't think he's on his way out. But I think if we get somebody else in, obviously not likely, but if we did manage to get Sanchez in, I think he'd be the first one to go over Willian, just because he has more of those moments that really hurt us than Willian does. Willian does enough work to save himself if he makes a mistake that I don't see him going, but Pedro, I can see why you might want to get him out the door, so those are my opinions on him. Fabregas and Chalobah in the middle, I thought interesting. I think it is a little bit too similar though, just because they both seem not as far as players go, but just as far as what their role in the team is. I think they're both very good at distribution. Fabregas has those great long balls. Chalobah maybe a little bit more short distribution, but that's what they both do well. Now it ended up working out well because Peterborough, they sat back a little bit. It was nice to have two players in who played that dangerous ball and really caused a lot of problems for the defense. So it worked out well, but if Peterborough had had more going forward, it would have been a little bit more dangerous just because Fabregas, while he does make some good defensive challenges, there was one where the guy is making a breaking run towards our defense and Fabregas just looked like an old man. He was so slow. Chalobah, while he does have some speed, defensively, I think sometimes he's a little too overzealous. He does make some great challenges every now and then, but there are too many times where he goes flying in and one little cut he's beat. So he needs to be a little bit smarter with that. He needs to be a little bit, you think about Conte, he goes flying in, but he slows himself down so that if they do cut it, he's back in their face. He's not flying past them, he's flying there and now he's there. He's in their face all the time. Chalobah is more like he goes flying and then they cut, and now he's still here. So he needs to fix that part of his game, but both of them played with the ball really well. I think a lot of the calmness that we had today that led to our dominance of possession came from those two players just really controlling the midfield and not letting them have the ball. I can't think of any time where they gave away the ball. Most of the time they were playing great passes, and if it was a giveaway, it was a long ball towards a player that player lost out on. So I was really pleased with both of their performances today. Willian and Loftus-Cheek played in behind Batshuayi. Willian, the goal was good, but overall I think I expect a bit more from him. He did some things. He did some great things today. I'm not saying he was not involved, but based on what we saw last year from Willian, based on what we saw the season before, I expect him to be the game changer at times. And to me today, he just seemed like he was another good player out there. He seemed like he was just another one of the team. Now, you could say, well, that's because the team was playing so well. Yeah, I agree, but at the same time, you look at the players we have out there, Loftus-Cheek, Chalobah, Batshuayi, you expect Willian to be, okay, there's Willian, and then there's some of the other fringe players that aren't getting a whole lot of game time right now. In my opinion, they all looked about the same. Fabregas was the only one that stood out to me with, he played a really great game today with his long balls. I don't know, I expect, whenever I think about the game, I expect to be like, oh yeah, I remember Willian today. And aside from the goal and one run that he made that led to a great cross in, Batshuayi had a chance, I can't really remember much about him. So I'm not saying that's bad, I'm not saying he's not still playing well, but I do think I think his form has dropped off a little bit, and I don't know, I think if you asked him, he would probably expect a bit more of himself today as well. So I don't know. Maybe he's still growing back into it. Maybe he's still getting the game time, trying to work himself back into what we expect, being that top level player. But for now, he seems like just one of the good players, one of the players that I expect to play okay week in, week out. Loftus-Cheek, I'm not a huge fan of. I think one of the things that got a lot of Chelsea fans excited was he was one of the young players that was getting a chance. He was one of the young players that was playing for Mourinho, and Mourinho doesn't do youth very well. So a lot of people were like, yes, it's exciting. But honestly, as we got to see more of him, I started to realize he's not the quality I was expecting. He does some good things here and there. I think he can dribble the ball really well. He's got good size on him for being a younger player. But one, I think he's a bit too selfish at times. Two, he turns off way too easily, and that honestly, today he had a good game, but that was still one issue I had. There were too many times where he loses the ball or he passes it away, and that's it. He's done. And after that, I don't expect anything from him. He's on his heels. He's not ready for it to come back to him. He's not ready for a deflection that could lead right to him. There's one in particular where the ball comes in. I can't remember who had the shot. I think it was Batshuayi, deflected off of a player, and Loftus-Cheek is right there. You know, he's a few steps away. All he has to do is be on his toes, and he can step in and possibly win it back, but he's on his heels, and the ball's away now. So I think he just turns off a little bit too much. But today, I think one of the issues he had, his selfishness, wasn't that big of an issue. There were a couple times where he still dribbled way too much, but overall, I think he worked really well with the team. I think he moved the ball well. I think he passed really well. I think he had a good game today for what I expect out of him. You know, the times where he turned off is expected for me, so that didn't change today. But the rest of it was good. You know, the movement was good. Some of the breakaways that he had a good run with, I think he did well. I think he showed that he does have the quality to be a good player. He's just got to work a bit harder. I think he's got to really work with himself mentally and become a better mental player. You know, turn on in the key moments. Don't just turn off whenever the ball's not near you or whenever you give it away. Always be turned on. Always be ready to go. And I think that could really change his game. I think he could really find himself kind of like how Chalobah is. He's really turned on all the time. That's one of the things that has caused him to be a feature in Conte's team, you know, getting subbed in every now and then. It's because he works so hard. Loftus-Cheek doesn't do that, and I think that's why he's not really getting a chance to play. So, you know, will that change? I don't know. I hope so. But on to Batshuayi. Obviously got himself a good goal today, and overall I think had a good game. I don't think he had a stellar game. I don't think he did anything to change the mind of Conte on why he should be playing. But hopefully this is a way for him to... He got some game time. He played well. He got himself a goal. Hopefully this is a start for him to start building on. You know, okay, you're playing well against these lower sides. Now take your time whenever you get a chance in the Premier League. Take your time against higher level teams, and you can start building from there. You can start growing. You can start becoming an even better player, and hopefully he'll get a chance. You know, I want to see him get a chance because honestly, right now Costa gets hurt or suspended, and you know, as we saw against Bournemouth, he'd prefer to play Hazard up top over Batshuayi, and you know, it is kind of disappointing. It's not a poor decision because it worked out so well, but I mean, to be honest, it is kind of understandable because Hazard's playing so well right now, and Batshuayi just isn't doing enough with the time he's getting on the field. So I hope he can use this to sort of bolster his confidence and go on and play even better. And then finally for the subs, first one to come on was Ola Aina, came on for Cahill. Was this because Cahill's been playing full 90 minutes and needed a break? Probably. I would like to think that it's because he saw how poor Cahill was playing and decided to take him out, but that's probably not the case. But either way, it ended up being Ola Aina became the right wing back and Ivanovic slid into center defense. Not a bad move. I think, you know, I talked about Ivanovic and, you know, he did some okay things at center back. There's still a couple times, though, where you see his speed is still affecting him. But I think I prefer him in a center back role than the wing back role. I don't think he has the ability to get up and down like he used to. So I prefer that. And on top of that, Aina came in. He's a player that has these moments where he has moments and then he has moments. He has a moment where he does something really well. Honestly, I thought his movement that led to the fourth goal was really well done. But then he has a moment where he tries to do something fancy and kicks it out of bounds. So, I don't know. The moments where he does something that's not good are really noticeable. And then the things that he does well sometimes aren't really noticed because he's more defensive. So, I don't know. He's an iffy player. I don't know if I trust him playing right now in the Premier League. I still prefer to have somebody. Honestly, I'd still think I'd prefer to have Ivanovic out there just because of his experience. Even if he doesn't have the physical ability to do it, with Aina, it's kind of like, does he have the experience? Does he have the know-how? Or is he going to make mistakes where he's kicking out of bounds and wasting a chance whenever we need to keep possession? So, I don't know. It was a little bit disappointing from him. And then the red card happened. Azpilicueta came in and Conte came in, both to solidify the defense and make sure we didn't start giving away more goals and lead to, oh no, it's 3-2 now. Now we're nervous. But both of them came in, did their job very well. Like I said before, I think that having Zuma in the midfield and then having Azpilicueta behind him not only bolstered Zuma's confidence, but also kind of showed that that is working. You know, having Azpilicueta as that one behind that makes up for the mistakes, and having Zuma in more of a free role where if he does make a mistake, if he does go charging into the midfield, it's all good. He's covered. I think that really shows that we need to have something like that. You know, Zuma and David Luiz are two players that I think sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they're not. They don't really think about what is this decision going to do, and so after the decision has consequences, you can kind of see why having two at the back has been an issue for those two. So I prefer to see that. But overall, I mean, it was a good, dominating performance. Obviously, it's against Peterborough, so not a huge feat, but we did our job. We did what we needed to do. We're on to the next round. Now we can look forward to Saturday against Leicester. That's where our focus needs to turn now, because we just lost the game in the Premier League. We just broke our winning run. Let's get back into it. Let's start another winning run. Let's get back into dominating the league again. Really, I think this is a good chance for us, because one of the issues we've had in the past is over the Christmas period, normally that's where we have our biggest issue. I mean, when we won the league 2 years ago, we were top of the table, really taking it. Christmas season hit, tie, loss. And it was just kind of like, oh no, things are starting to look down. And then all of a sudden, after Christmas was over, you know, Man City was tied with us, I think, on New Year's. And then we won. Man City tied a couple times, and then we kept on winning, kept tying and winning, and Man City never really came close again. So the fact that we managed to get through Christmas period with only one loss and then the rest were wins, I think is a good thing. And now we can start focusing, once again, we are in a free period where there's no Champions League for us. The only thing we may have is the FA Cup, and honestly, I would kind of like to see us go for the FA Cup, even though it would be more games, just because it would be nice to win the FA Cup too. You know, win the league and the FA Cup. That's a good combination, especially in Conte's first season. So we'll see where it goes from here, but I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, one of the other things to talk about is Ake returning on loan from Bournemouth. Not only does this mean that Bournemouth may get relegated this season, because honestly, he's been the star player of Bournemouth for the past several games, but I think it's interesting to see, one, where's he going to slot into the team, because as we've seen at Bournemouth, he can play a central defender role. In fact, there was one game they played with three at the back, and he was one of those three. But he's also a fullback, so he has a chance to sort of take over where Marcos Alonso is, and you know, Alonso hasn't been playing well, so it'd be interesting to see how he features in the team. I think based on his performances, that's what caused Conte to say, okay, we're bringing him back, because he's been playing so well. And I'll talk more about that as at the end of the transfer window and in my wrap-up of it, but it's just something worth mentioning as we're going forward to see. It is something that directly affects the first team, because I think this sort of puts a bit of pressure, especially on Cahill, to see we're bringing in a young player who is playing really well right now. He has a chance to take over your spot if you don't step it up. So we'll see where it goes, but those are my thoughts on today's game. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What did you like and dislike about this game? Who's your man in the match? Let me know. We can talk about, discuss, all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews. I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.